Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Reservoir Red Dogs podcast. I'm Matt Ford and this is my co-host Paul McGregor, who inevitably sabotaged this part of the show because he hates reading from a script.
Cue the passing of the script. Let's have a look. Okay. I don't just hate reading from a script, Matt. I hate sharing the air that we breathe. You've got it right this time.
I've really got your tone of voice.
You really have. Coming up on the show, we'll be picking a winner of the 1989 League Cup final replica shirt in our joke competition, and I'll try and decipher whether it's this week's...
Tall tale.
Your writing's dreadful. Whether this week's tall tale is trick or treat. That's a bit boring this week.
As always, we're overlooked by our very own voice of God, our eye in the sky. It's Johnny. I made one film about Forest and never had to pay for a pint again. Owen. Hello, Johnny.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you?
I'm very good. I should clarify, when Paul says my writing's awful, it's on a computer screen. It's not my handwriting that's the problem.
No, the vibe of your writing's coming through. It's just messy. You've got a messy brain. I can even see it in your typing.
We've already been very lucky to have such great guests on the show, and today we're extremely grateful to be joined by a true footballing legend. He's Forest's most successful captain ever, winning 2 European Cups, 2 League Cups, 1 league title, a Charity Shield, the European Super Cup and the Anglo-Scottish Cup. He also won the First Division with Derby. It's John McGovern.
John McGovern holds the European Cup aloft, and the aims of Brian Clough and Peter Taylor achieved, but I'm sure they're not going to rest on their laurels. That's one of their great secrets. They don't do anything of that nature. They will be planning for the future now to hold on to it.
John, welcome to the
Good
show.
morning.
Good morning,
This was
John.
never going to end.
That many?
It's an incredible haul
Unbelievable, isn't it?
of medals. It's remarkable. Do you have all of your winners' medals in your house?
Every week.
I have got, most of them in my house.
Please tell him that they're in a bin bag in your loft.
No, they used to be just in a bag in the wardrobe, but
It kills him.
at the moment I'm actually changing cars, so I'm selling my Derby County medals.
Are you really?
Yeah,
So that's the league title
Second Division Championship.
and Second Division Championship.
Yeah, and one or two other minor trophies.
So that's to buy a new car.
Yeah, I just fancied changing my car.
So, I was going to ask you this later in the show, but shortly before we recorded this, we saw a picture of your former car, which was
Sponsored car.
Yeah, we talked to Steve Chetler about this, about cars in the 90s, where he said they just wanted your name plastered on the side. We will tweet a photo of this out for people to see, but yours was probably the most indiscreet sponsored car in the history of football.
Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be, because I did actually tell them that, you'll have to show some discretion, because if I'm living in Nottingham and any Notts County fans happen to see a car with my name on it, it might get damaged. After brief discussions on the, shall we say, quiet approach, I got a lime green car and my name and the Forest badge in red on the lime green, which, was enough to make any bull mad anyway if they ever saw it. So,
What year was that?
must have been about 1980.
So this
79
is
or 80.
This is peak career,
Yeah.
and they're giving you lime green cars. Was everyone else getting one in silly colours?
No, I don't think so.
Sounds like the sort of thing Mr. Blobby would drive.
But well, if you consider at the time, this was somebody that's going to give me a free car, and on the understanding initially that it's going to be tastefully done, I agreed to go ahead with it. But obviously there was a kind of gasp of astonishment when he actually showed me the car itself. Having actually put my name on it and having been there, I think gone there by taxi because I'm going to drive the car away. I don't think I had any option if I was going to get back home that day, but to take the sponsored car.
I've had a brainwave. Instead of having to sell your Derby medals, if anyone listening to this wants to give you a free car, if we were able to get... Does Wheatley still exist?
Yes, I think they do.
If anyone from Wheatless is listening, we should try and get hold of them. We could recreate that lime green car. If they were prepared
Would you
to
have
give
it for free? Would you have it back for free?
Only if it's got your name on it.
Oh, mine!
I think you deserve it more than I do, I think.
I do not think so.
Did you ever get a free car?
No.
Were there ever any discussions about it?
I asked for a free car in my contract. Well, my dad did. My dad did the classic. I didn't have an agent. Having an agent, and I went in, and then I got. It was when Beckham and everyone were going in and asking for a couple of grand a week, and I went, I'm as good as them. I'll go in and knock on the door. So I went, knocked on the door. Frank Clock went, all right, can I have the same contract? So me and my dad were like, my dad went, and a car! As we walked in, and a car! So, the gaffer was all right with it. He said, yeah, okay, we'll have a look, see what we can do. And that's when I got that beautiful Renault convertible.
So the Renault was free or not free?
Yeah, it was free.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was nice. But the club bought it, but it wasn't given to me. It wasn't like a sponsored car.
Okay, so you didn't have to have your name on the side?
No.
Would you
I got that put on later.
You had that yourself. Personalised number plate.
Yeah, it was in neon at the back.
We've had quite a few emails. People are very excited that you're on, John, as are we.
Okay.
Darren Bramley says, I met John when I was 13 in Smalley's Cash and Carry in Summercoats, where John was making a public appearance. I embarrassed myself by telling him that he and his teammates should shoot from distance against the next Saturday's opponents, Arsenal. I told him Pat Jennings wasn't too good with shots from distance. I don't know why I thought I knew that. It was great meeting John. The game ended 1-1. Francis scored in the last minute. It was December 79, I think. Love the show. Thanks, Darren Bramley. Does that ring any bells, John?
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid not. As time's marched on, there's a lot of games between then and now. So,
when kids would meet you, particularly when you were playing, they're overawed. I know what it was like me. I mean, even now, having you here, I'm slightly in awe. Do people panic and say silly things in front of you?
I wouldn't say panic, but obviously some of them just, kind of very gushy about, having met you. And it's a great privilege when people do recognise you. I mean, there was a time, I think in my last couple of years at Forest, where occasionally it was raining and we'd come out after a match and one of the two of the players would try and maybe get in the Jubilee Club to get a pint in and would almost run past kids are asking for their autographs. And I kind of reminded them that, 3 years ago you would have walked 5 miles to sign an autograph for somebody.
Very true.
So get it done. And it's a privilege that every player should appreciate. Not just Forest players, but footballers in general.
Well, you must have signed, 1 million autographs in your life, do you think?
No idea on the numbers, but, it's still a privilege every time that you do it.
Here was something I was going to ask you both. Because footballers' autographs are probably the best autographs in terms of aesthetics. People obviously think, footballers write their numbers.
You can read mine. You can actually understand my name when I sign.
But it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous looping autograph that I think, actually, if you look at David Beckham's, I think he's slightly copied your style. Genuinely. If you look at Beckham's, I will tweet the pictures of them both. But did you practice your autograph when you were coming through as a player, thinking, I better have a nice autograph for when people ask for it?
I think when I was 16, playing for Hartlepool United.
Yeah.
I think I practiced it a couple of times then.
I knew it. I knew. Because as a kid, I used to think, I'll practice my autograph, in case of
I just copied my dad's, because my dad's got the same name as me. So I thought he had a great autograph. So I used to copy my dad's. Didn't think anything of it, really. And we went to an under-14s tournament in France, and we were getting asked for autographs. It was just like writing Paul McGregor with like my left hand. It looked dreadful. So at that point, you have to think, well, this is going to last. People are going to read these.
It's a good point you make there, because a lot of them are illegible. They're illegible.
Pick one.
They're illegible. I remember getting a backpack signed. I used to just get everyone's autograph when I went to Forest games, reserve games, youth team games, whatever. I remember the Forest youth team playing a game at the Harvey Haddon Stadium. This must be like 1992 maybe, and getting a little rucksack signed by players. I mean, there'd be no way of knowing who those names were now.
Well, they put the squad numbers on now, thinking that's going to help.
Yes.
But
They do, they put the numbers in.
it only helps the home supporters.
Yeah.
Who might know the squad number.
Yeah, and it only helps with that.
Or maybe don't. So
I look at your autograph every day, and I'm not making this up. I've got a signed photo of you on my living room wall of you with the European Cup.
But you see, in years to come, I don't want them saying, well, look, I've got this autograph, but I don't know who he was. In fact, I don't know who he was at the time either, But oh no, wait a minute, I can make out his name. I do remember him. So there's a thing in there that they're going to remember me because they can actually understand my autograph.
That's a really sort of, in terms of securing your legacy, it's a really sort of far-sighted approach. Now, we've got an interesting email here, John. I'm just going to get the photo because this guy emailed this in this morning, and I looked at this on the train. So I'll show you the photo in a second, but this is the email. Hi, Matt, Paul and Johnny. Loving the podcast. You asked for John McGovern memories. Not so much a funny story, more a funny picture, although I realise that's not exactly ideal for the medium of sound. You're absolutely right, Andrew, but we'll put the picture out on the Twitter feed. Around the same time that I Believe in Miracles released, there was an exhibition of memorabilia and the European Cup at the Nottingham Contemporary. I went along with my wife, April, and son Archie, who had recently broken his arm playing football. When we saw John, I asked him if he would sign Archie's plaster, which I think threw him as he looked slightly bemused by this. We got a picture with us and John and then left him to his adoring crowd. Looking back at the picture, there is an uncanny resemblance to John and me. I was born in Wembley, so perhaps John celebrated one of the League Cup triumphs a bit too much with one of the local girls. Anyway, picture attached so you can see what I mean. Keep up the great work, and thank you, John, for the memories. So, John, I'm going to show you the picture now
I'm sure
Okay.
we
of
cannot
you
comment.
and you and Andrew. So Andrew's the tall guy there. Does Andrew look like you is the big question.
I think Andrew's wishing there.
No, I can't see the resemblance.
I don't think there's a great resemblance there. I think maybe the hairline, and that's about it.
That's a bit harsh.
Well, I mean, but a similar haircut then, hairstyle.
California dreaming, I think. there's no. I've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito in Twins. That would be the same as him saying he looks like me.
It's not great. I mean, we don't want to start turning this into Jeremy Kyle and doing DNA tests on
That's
Formula
literally
4
what
as well.
I see in the mirror because my brain sees David Bowie, and then I see David Dowie.
You're in good shape, Paul. Don't talk yourself down.
I don't look like David Bowie though.
I look in the mirror and I keep hoping Brad Pitt turns up. But,
Exactly,
it's not worked yet. It does for Kenny Burns. He guarantees that Brad Pitt's turned up when he looks in the mirror. But,
I mean, it is, without wanting to be disrespectful to Kenny, who we hope will come on the show, some former players keep themselves in shape and some don't. No, but it's
Hang
true.
on, you can't preface that with "I don't want to be disrespectful."
Well, but John's alluded to the fact that John's in better physical condition than Kenny. I mean,
Okay,
Well,
I
it's
can't
not
wait
that-
till Kenny comes
Gordon.
on.
yeah, I mean, it's just interesting that some people, like when you watch on telly, take for instance Sky, Jamie Carragher clearly still trains. Gary Neville, maybe not so much. Neil Ruddock,
you're sweating a bit
definitely
here.
not. I don't want to offend people, but I'm just interested as to those who like maintain the discipline of an athlete and want to keep their body in shape, and those that just go, right, the career's over now. People like Paul, who then basically just go
yeah,
to
but
seed.
when you're in a situation where you're a professional athlete, if you like, a professional footballer or any kind of sportsman, I mean, look at the ages that we are now. Pensioners' age. You either are supremely dedicated or you enjoy life a bit more, because there are certain things that you have to deny yourself if you want to stay in peak condition.
Yeah.
It was slightly different in the days, obviously, when I played, which is 30 or 40 years ago, where you could eat what you wanted, drink what you wanted. And you were restricted time-wise when you could go out and drink to 2 days before a match being taboo. But having said that, if you were discreet in those days, you could find a nice, quiet pub and go out even on a Thursday night.
And if you're winning, it's fine.
Yeah, and even Brian Clough, who was probably the greatest psychologist the football game's ever known, he would occasionally pull you into his office and question you about your drinking or where you went drinking. I can remember that he called me into the office one Monday and he said, "Where were you on Saturday night?" And I said, "Well, I went out, boss." He said, "Yeah, I know exactly where you were on Saturday night." He says, "And according to my source, you drank 24 bottles of Guinness." And I stood in front of him and I kind of pulled my shirt up and showed him my stomach, and I said, "I wouldn't know where to put 24 bottles of Guinness, boss, Just be careful when you go out drinking in town. Now get out of my office."
Can I just say that's the
number
best
one,
Brian
right?
Clough impression I've ever heard.
That's number one.
That's better than Michael Sheen. That's incredible.
Great,
That's out
wasn't
of this
it?
world, John.
Well, he's a better actor than I am, so I'll let him away with that one.
John, you were christened John Prescott McGovern.
Yep.
It's a little known fact that John Prescott is called John McGovern Prescott. It's not, but I want.
There's certainly no relation there.
Have you ever met him?
No, I haven't.
Where's
no.
this going, man?
Well, it's just an interesting thing, isn't it, John Prescott?
He obviously was an athlete as well.
Yeah, he's sort of in the Kenny Burns mould these days.
I can't wait to get Kenny on.
I hope he's not listening. Kenny, if you're listening, it's all with the greatest respect.
Just have to have a fully reinforced partition between you and Kenny.
Please don't it, no, yeah. You played for Clough at 4 clubs: Hartlepool United, Derby, Leeds and Forest.
Yeah.
How much did he change much between the first days you played for him at Hartlepool to the final day you played for him at Forest?
Not one iota.
Wow.
Everybody said to me he mellowed when he got older. I said, no, he didn't. He just probably didn't say as much.
What was he like? Because he was very young, wasn't he? His playing career was obviously famously cut cruelly short. What's it
Yeah,
like
I
playing
was-
for such a young manager?
Yeah, I was at Hartlepool on trial, 15 years of age, with some other boys because Hartlepool had decided to start a youth team. before that season, they couldn't afford to start a youth team, but they decided the best way to try and produce players is have a youth team. So what they did was chose 2 players from every under-18 side in the area, in the Hartlepool area, to play in trial matches. And obviously I played in one of the trial matches and then got through to one of the final trial matches with the local side that I played. It was my first season anyway, playing junior football, so I thought I was very fortunate to get a trial. And then Peter Taylor and Clough obviously turned up at the trial match that I played in. So we played, and there was an incredible quote by Peter Taylor after, when he said supposedly said to Brian, lock the doors of the ground and don't open them till we signed that skinny kid playing it outside right. And obviously the skinny kid was me.
Yeah.
And obviously after they watched me in that trial match, I quickly signed amateur forms. I then played in the youth team, obviously, played in the reserves, and in a short space of time actually made my debut when I was 16 for the first team.
Wow, didn't know
Having played 1 season in junior football.
I mean,
I never played football before that. So
there's always a new teenage when people lost their mind over Rooney and stuff. But you were there years and years before, playing first team football in a far more physical era as a 16-year-old. How tough was it back then?
Well, I can remember making my debut. It was at Hartlepool, last game of the season, and the opposition fullback came up to me before the game and said, "Best of luck, son."
Not in a nice
In
way.
so many words.
No, that's what he said. That's exactly what he said. He said, "Good luck, son." And I just thought, that's a little bit strange.
A nice man.
And then, of course, just before the whistle started and I lined up, he came and stood next to me again, and he said, "But by the way, if you go past me today, I'll break your effing leg." And I realised after 10 minutes in the game that he wasn't kidding either. So that was a nice little introduction to football.
Wow.
But then when you gain experience and you realise that the people come up and warn you, they're not the ones you worry about.
Absolutely.
It's the ones that just do it without warning you that are the ones you've got to be wary of.
Tell me you skinned him all game.
I think I had a pretty average game.
Oh, did you?
Actually, yeah, Paul. I was not one of my better ones. But in those early days, I learned a lot because I'd captained the cricket team for 3 years at school. I captained the rugby team for 3 years at school. And I wanted to be a tennis player. So when the football came along and I joined the team at 15 years of age, I didn't think that, within a year I'd be playing league football.
That is unbelievable.
You're like a sort of all-round
but I think
polymath.
Well, I think it's only because of Clough and Taylor. They were, it was Taylor that saw the potential ability I had. I don't think Clough saw it. But Taylor just said, no, he can play, put him in the side, because I was 15 and we lined up on a Thursday night at Hartlepool United, and the trainer said, "I've got a new manager, Brian Clough, and he's brought his assistant Peter Taylor along this evening to say hello to you." So I stood at the end of the line of boys because this is the 60s, and the Rolling Stones and the Beatles are the 2 big bands, and I fancied myself to be the next Mick Jagger, if the football,
As we all do.
if the football doesn't work out, so I stood at the end of the line of boys, and of course Brian Clough goes along, shakes hands, "Good luck, son, and came to me and he didn't offer me his hand, and I thought, what have I done? I haven't done anything, and then he just said, "Stand up straight, get your shoulders back and get your hair cut. You look like a girl." And it was like, wow.
That was my everyday in the youth team. Every day.
I went
that.
I went back home, my mum said, "How did training go, son?" And I said, "I ain't going back there, mum. The bogeyman's arrived." But that was the early days where, I learnt an incredible amount of things from him. Real simple things. The first coaching lesson he had to me was after I made my debut. And I didn't have a great debut. Typical, head down, run at people, try and beat them, Paul, try and make yourself look good, and I had a pretty average game against the fullback who was really experienced, and he would just back off me, and I was used to players diving in at me and knocking it past him, but, he was experienced and I had a pretty poor 90 minutes. So when I came in for the Monday morning training session, "McGovern, get a ball and bring it here now." So football went over and I said, what do you want me to do with it, boss? "What I would like you to do is dribble that ball round the corner flag and back as fast as you can." So off I went with the ball at my feet, words of encouragement ringing in my ears. "And my grandmother runs faster than you, McGovern." So I came back to him and said, "Was that all right, boss?" Wondering what I was doing. He said, now what I would like you to do is run round the corner flag and back without the ball. So I ran round the corner flag, came back to him and said, was that okay, boss? He said, now tell me what was easier, running with the ball or without the ball? Being a bit of a smart kid, I said, it's easier running without it, boss. Why is that? Why don't you try passing it on a Saturday then? and it was probably the best lesson I've ever had, but it stuck with me. It just, when he said it to me, I just looked at the simplicity of it and thought, well, yeah, there's times I run it and then pass to somebody else. Well, why don't I just pass it to them straight away? Now, you have to pass it to them at the right time, at the right pace, on the wrong side of a defender so they don't get clattered. But the simplicity of that statement to me as a 16-year-old stuck with me, because that was the manager's philosophy. You don't run with the ball. And he said, if one of our players is closer to the opposition goal than you are, why wouldn't you pass it to him?
Yeah.
And these are small little gems, but he doesn't, bore you to death out on the training field, going through it all. He just tells you.
I guess that's the respect, though, isn't it? He brings in the players that he thinks he can work with, and then I'm going to tell you the once, nice and simply. If you can't do it,
well, that's it. He said, "Look, I'll tell you once.
Yeah.
I might even tell you twice if I like you, but I won't tell you 3 times because you won't be at this club." So Clough and Taylor didn't suffer fools gladly, and I think they appreciated. I think A, my effort out there on the field. B, followed their philosophy in the style that perhaps was the right style, and I still think it is today. And they knew that I would stand up and be counted when, with 3-0 down, I'll still be doing the right things. Whereas the star striker might be hiding a little bit, but they would recognise that as well. So if you stand up and be counted for them and you show responsibility, regardless of whether it's the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes of a game, whether you're 3-0 up or 3-0 down, they know that the commitment is there and it's always going to be there. So I think that's what they appreciate about myself, just the commitment that I showed, which never flinched. And I was always trying to become a better player. I'm like most footballers, I wanted to be the best player, And then when I played against George Best, I realised, no, you're not going to become a great player. Forget about that. But then, because I didn't have the ability of someone like George Best, or Bobby Charlton or Dennis Law or whoever it was, I had to try and make up for it in different ways, compensate for my lack of, I had no pace, which didn't help. But then I saw Bobby Moore playing for West Ham and lift the World Cup for England, and he had no pace either. But he understood where the ball was going to go, which is easier if you're a defender. But as you gain experience and you play lots and lots of games, you know where the ball's going to go before a lot of people won't know where it's going to go. And, they do call that experience. But if you remember who you were playing against from one season to the next as well, that's another thing that you can add to your game. Alan Ball used to have this little dummy to the left, jink to the right, because he was all right-footed. So whenever I used to play to him, I was already stood waiting for him to jink to the right before he did it, which used to really annoy him. And
the Franz Cars, I think it's called.
Is that right?
No, it's not. But that's what Franz used to.
And I used to, Alan Ball would run past me and kidney punch you, as he's running past you. Because he was actually smaller than I was. But I would annoy him because I'd always be there. I'd anticipated what he was going to do. And if I remember everybody I play against, it's like when you played against Leeds United, remember to pass the ball first time when it comes to you. Because if you keep hold of it for a couple of seconds, somebody's going to come clattering into you.
But you played for Leeds. Obviously, you played for Leeds during that infamous Clough period. Probably
the lowest point of my career in a sense, because I didn't know that Brian Clough had told them to throw the medals in the bin because they cheated to win them. You take over the former league champions and you make a statement like that to the players. But if I had known Clough had made that statement, I would not have gone to Leeds, because Norman Hunter told me it was true when I went there, and Norman's a pretty straight guy. He said, yeah, that's what he said the very first meeting he had with us. And then I began to realise Peter Taylor's not here, so he's saying things that, Peter Taylor would have probably told him to leave out. And it was very difficult for me at Leeds.
Did they mistrust you because they saw you as Clough's man?
Exactly that. I'm a Clough signing. He's brought me to the club. Players like Giles and Bremner were over 30, I think, at the time, maybe thinking about testimonials, so they're thinking, well, I don't want somebody coming and taking my place. Besides that, if Clough gets rid of me, I might not get the testimonial match. So, there was one or two elements. I'm not saying that was the reason, but, there were elements like that. And besides that, when I ran out for my debut and got booed by the home fans,
Oh my God, that's appalling.
I'd never experienced that before in my
Wow.
life.
Why were they booing you?
And I got slaughtered. Well, Clough had signed me, and he told me before I went
Oh
out there.
my
He said,
God.
"Listen," he said, "you've got to replace Billy Bremner because he was sent off for fighting with Kevin Keegan in the Charity Shield."
That's right.
He said, I've got Mick Bates and I've got Terry Yorath. He said, but you're miles better than any of them. He said, so you're going to have to go in, but I don't think you're going to get a good reception. And as usual, he was spot on. So I knew it was going to be difficult. The only person I upset was my good lady, because at the end of the match, I came out and she said, let's just get out of this ground. She was in tears in the stand, with a vitriolic, response from even the home fans.
Do you remember any of the things that were shouted that day?
No, I can't. It was just the booze out. They were louder than it. But I did upset my other half because she said, let's get out of it. I never want to come back here.
And did that affect the way you played at all? On the day?
Well, after that, I never got in the side again because Clough got the sack, and I never ever got near the first team squad after that. But when I came out, I said to her, "No, I'm not leaving now." And she says, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going in the bar over there with the Leeds fans to have a drink."
Oh,
And she said, "You must be kidding." She said, "They've booed you." She said, like right from the start of the game. I says, "Yeah, but I'm not slinking out of this ground." I said, "I'm going in there for a drink." I said, "Because I have a drink after the game anyway." I said, "And you can wait in the car." And she wouldn't wait in the car. She said, "I'm not staying in the car." And she went with me, and I went in the club, and there was one or two booing, and there was a couple of beer mats thrown my way. And I walked up to the bar and said, "Can I have a half a draft Guinness, please?" Because that's what I drank.
Yeah.
And then I drank it slowly and then left.
It's like a scene out of Get Carter. Some
Well,
sort of brooding
hopefully he was
70s
clothed,
post. Oh my word!
No, but my only thoughts at the time were, if you think you can boo me and I'm going to run away, you've got another thing coming. So
Is that sort of part of the John McGovern psychology, or is that partly the Clough influence? Do you think?
no, that was myself. That's my own thoughts. I mean, most sensible people probably would have just got in the car and
I've
left.
legged it.
But
Yeah, but then
I've
sensible
legged it at
people
half-time.
3-0 down don't go and have the ball off the back four, do they? That's bravery. That's a brave
well, it
person.
was my only answer to them. You see, I'll show you. I don't care.
Yeah.
Actually, the barman said this one's on me when he poured me the half a Guinness. So
Might
I
be your
got,
last.
I got a free half a Guinness, and so obviously every time I go back to Ellen Road now, I wear my European Cup winners tie,
Good.
which
That's a mic drop, I think.
Yeah.
which they don't have an answer for.
Well, here's the thing. So you're obviously an ambassador at the club. You've got a senior position at Nottingham Forest.
Proud to be the ambassador of the
and
club.
rightly so. When you go back now as almost as a diplomat in the football community to Derby, to Leeds, places you've played before, is there ever any sort of needle in the boardroom?
No, because time has eroded any kind of memories or vendettas or dislikes or likes. Apart from with myself, who still wears my European Cup winners tie, I've got a good memory.
Just let them know.
Yeah, so no, it's time's gone past that. I mean, when I go to Derby, I was very successful at Derby. Winning second and first division championships, getting to the semi-final of the European Cup. So I had a fantastic time there, and there'll be Forest fans that'll want me to curse Derby, and there'll be Derby fans when I see them want me to curse Forest. But listen, if you have a good time at a club, you're enjoying it, you're living the dream. So Derby, I enjoyed myself as a player, learnt an awful lot while I was there, and then obviously with Clough being the manager, there was nothing new in his philosophy that I had to adopt. I just wanted to prove myself to the other players. When you move from one club to another, I think if your attitude's spot on and you're prepared to die for the cause and go that extra mile, even if it's go in and do a couple of afternoons extra training to make it look as if you're keen to be at the club, then I think you get the respect of the players. Once you start playing the matches, then you have to earn that respect all over again by what you do out there on the field. It's the same as when a new manager takes over. The manager can have the greatest reputation in the world, can be the greatest player in the world, but after a couple of weeks, it's what he says that counts, not his reputation. So you find that some managers will go in and there'll be a fantastic turnaround in results, but it doesn't last because it's what he says that counts. And obviously Clough and Taylor were experts at educating you about the basics in football and then about the commitment that you needed. And obviously Clough was the greatest talker that I think anybody has ever known in the football game. I mean, he was a one-off. And when I was a 15-year-old kid and he scared me to death, I told my mates at school, I said, never met anybody like this guy. I said, he's just different. I'm 67 now, and he's different. I've never met anybody like him. Same statement.
Now, last show, we announced that we're going to give away a replica 1989 League Cup final shirt. And to decide the winner, we have a joke competition. We've asked Forest fans over the last fortnight, John, to submit their jokes in iTunes reviews. And I've shortlisted, I think, the last 5.
There's 5?
I think there's 5. And you guys get to decide what the funniest joke is.
Oh, okay.
Try and react.
John Robertson doesn't tell any of these, by the way.
No, I don't think. Well, you'll be able to tell us. Some of these might go in your after dinner speech act after this, John, but we'll see. So here we go. This is the first one. Why does Mark Warburton hate crayons? Because he can't draw. Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's sharp.
Okay. He raised a smile.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He raised a smile. There's an Englishman, an Irishman, and a Scotsman. All 3 have died and are stood at the gates of heaven waiting for God to decide if they can come in. The Englishman steps forward and God says to him, "What's your name, young man?" "Trevor, boss," he replies. "Tell me, young man," God continued, "what have you done to deserve a place in heaven?" "Well, I scored the winning goal in the European Cup final, boss." God retorted, "My bloody gran could have scored that, but all right, in you come." Next, God turned to the Scotsman. "Hey, you fat lad, what have you done to deserve a place in heaven?" And the Scotsman replied, "Well, I crossed the ball for the last fella to score the goal, and I popped up with a winner a year later to win the European Cup again." God seemed to like the Scotsman. "You're a shabby-looking lad, but in you come, young man." Finally, God was left for the Irishman. "What's your name, then?" "Rye," he said. I just realised I couldn't do an Irish accent. "Right then, young man, you know the drill." "Well, I not only won the European Cup, I also won the Premier League 7 times, the FA Cup 4 times, and the League Cup twice." God pushed a button, releasing a trapdoor, sending the Irishman to hell. As he fell, God called after him, "That's very good, young man, but no one likes a bloody Judas." These are very bleak, aren't they?
They are, aren't they?
I hope we get a funny one. Now, a number of people sent this one in, but this guy was the first. This is from NFFC Plum. There's only one joke associated with NFFC, David Platt.
Okay.
Stony-faced in the studio. What does a Derby County fan... This is from an unintelligible handle here, but what does a Derby County fan and a bottle of beer have in common? They're both empty from the neck up. These are really cruel jokes, right?
You've picked these out.
Mate, honestly, these are the best. I swear to you.
This is like your act, Matt. This is like watching him.
No, it's not. Don't you start.
John Robertson's just gone up in my estimation as a joke teller. Yeah.
This is the
By
final
leaps and bounds.
This is from Mark Shaw. How many Pierre Van Hooijdonks does it take to change a light bulb? Just one, but it would take 3 months of sulking and moaning to do it. And when he does, he'll do it on his own terms, and will celebrate doing it on his own in a well-lit corner.
That's just factual.
So what's your favourite? Do either of you have a favourite? I mean, without wanting to disrespect our listeners, the standard
of those.
It hasn't set the world alight, yeah.
The first one is the best. It's topical. It's about crayons.
And it's actually a joke.
Yeah.
It's about crayons, which goes down well in Johnny Owen's book, because that's what he still uses to write with. So there we go. Why does Mark Warburton hate crayons? Because he can't draw. That's not a bad joke.
Well,
Topical.
So whoever submitted that bad dad joke, email us rrd1865@outlook.com. And we will get in touch with you and
what's he
let
won?
You know.
The shirt?
He's won a 1989 League Cup final replica shirt. And now we've got an email here for you, Paul. In our regular feature, number 1 is Brian Rice.
And number 2 is Brian Rice. And number 3 is Brian Rice. And number 4...
As a teenage indie fan back in the 90s, Paul McGregor was an obvious choice to be my favourite player, especially after Boheenan did one. Okay, well, not an obvious choice then, second choice, but okay, I'll take it. I too endeavoured to start a Paul McGregor chant in B Block back in the 95-96 season. Mine was to Stand and Deliver by Adam and the Ants. Paul McGregor, oi, your money or your life.
That's amazing!
It's all right. It didn't catch on, fortunately. Also, before a pre-season friendly at Kettering before the 96-97 season, I actually had the chance to speak to Paul. I promised him if he scored against Kettering, I'd get his name on my shirt. He didn't, of course. Great work with the podcast, fellas, and please give a shout out to my brother, Ol Bond. Cheers, Alistair Bond.
That's from Alistair Bond.
I'm happy with that because that was the first album I ever bought, the Prince Charming album.
Wow.
Yeah,
So these people really understood you.
they really did, yeah.
You never remember hearing that sort of drifting across from B Block?
Just one person on their own.
Paul McGregor,
What a
you
brave
funny,
person, though, to stand up and go for that.
Well, I think people should keep emailing us in. The chance that they tried to start and didn't work. Email us in to rrd1865@outlook.com.
You should make some up as well.
Make some up. I think people should record themselves because we need to get more listeners, right? So what better way than through a chant? So I think people should shout out, download the Reservoir Red Dogs podcast in the stadium during a game and record themselves.
And come up with the chant that I never had.
Let's start a Paul McGregor chant. You know when we go away to Brentford and that, there's all the old
See how I
bop
planted
stuff
that one?
out. All the old retro, these away days when people just sing all the old stuff. Let's get a Paul McGregor chant going at Forest games.
Yeah.
Heaven knows I
Tina
deserve
Turner
it.
fans, yeah, we've already thought of that one. Go on.
Let's do it. Let's get up, and we've got to record it. So you've got to start a Paul McGregor chant at the next Forest game. Think of what the words would be. Think of the tune. Maybe it is that Paul McGregor, your money or your life.
But it's not bad.
Just go with that. By the way, Alistair Bond and his brother Ol, their parents had Bond children and didn't call any of them James.
Alistair Bond, yes. Miss Moneypenny. Absolutely.
What other impressions do you do, John?
Other impressions. Bit 365. The most famous betting company in the world.
Get your mobiles and laptops out.
Brilliant.
Have you always been able to do them?
Quite a few.
Do
a few.
Do you do any other?
I don't do any when I'm doing after dinner speaking either, though.
Do you know?
No.
Do you do Stuart Pearce?
Stuart Pearce? No, I can't do Stuart Pearce.
He was the first impression I was able to do as a kid, and I watched back an old Forest video recently, 88, 89. I remember he uses some. He makes up words. Because, going to places like Cholton, not the most glamourable of games, Glamourable. He's good. And then after they win the 89 League Cup, he goes, everyone's just chuffed over the moon, Chuffed over the moon. There's something really, I'm sure we talked about it
I've
before.
done that a few times.
He comes across as a real pussycat in interviews, Stuart Pearce. He always looks a little bit, I don't think we played particularly well today. I think the balls are done well, and at the end of the day, we didn't get the 3 points. But we'll keep the Man City one. Have you ever seen that? I think they lacked moral courage today.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of them can go back and look at their children in the eye and say, "Daddy did a decent day's work." Like that. It was almost like Bible. It was like Old Testament type stuff. John, we did ask if you. I'm obsessed with what former players do with their medals and shirts and things like that. And over the course of these last few weeks, it turns out a lot of former Forest players just keep their shirts in lofts and
Paul, just
under the sink.
pass him the 2 European Cup
They
medals.
might not get round.
Oh my God, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. Paul's just staring at them.
Oh, dear
Paul,
me.
describe them.
Describe them.
Very simple.
They
Size
are
of an
very
old
simple.
Size of an old florin.
I think people would be
2 bob piece
interested
for those that don't know.
to know that you have your name across the top of them.
A guy did that. And, the actual engraving was done by the guy that runs the shoe and heel bar in Meadow Hall Centre in Sheffield.
Brilliant. They are a thing
He said,
of
"What are
beauty."
these?" I said, "Just be careful when you're engraving them." Yeah.
Wow, there you go. I'll pass
So
them
like,
over.
oh my word. Oh my God.
We'll get a picture of these.
Beautiful. Do you polish these regularly? They're in such beautiful condition.
No, they just stay in the boxes in the bag.
Oh my God! 2 Champions League winners' medals in my hands. In my hands. Isn't that? You know what I love about them? Just the simple design. Beautiful UEFA logo on the back with the stars.
They're certainly not ostentatious. They're just.
Oh my God!
Here's where I normally would mock you for being so completely over the top, but I'm in your camp here.
You know what this is like? People get over like old war medals and like military history. Do you know what I mean? Like this is.
He's aging me here, Paul, isn't he? He's aging me here, definitely.
This is almost like, you know what? This is like Forest's Holy Grail. This is like the Da Vinci Code of Nottingham Forest. Like these are like the magical. This is like holding the tablet of stone that the 10 Commandments were handed down on, or the goblet from the Last Supper. This is out of this world. I never thought I'd touch them, John.
Well, for
You
those.
sound like Gollum. You know Gollum?
My precious.
Oh my God, John, they're beautiful. They're in such stunning condition.
This is radio. You're going to have to...
We'll take a photo of them if you don't mind. Thank you so much for bringing those in.
I'll
No
pass them
problem.
back
I
over.
don't want to. I'm
No
worried
problem.
that like my sweat's going to erode them or something. Now, last week we played a game called Trick or Tree, which is just a true or false game. Trick is false, tree is true, and it was a story about Andre Salenzi belonging to a religious cult called the Seventh Day Adventists. It was true. 51% of people who voted on Twitter thought it was false. They thought it was trick.
I think it was a tough one.
Misled the
I'm now
public there.
I'm now still at 100%. I've called you bluff on
called it
both
right.
of those. Yeah, called it right.
Okay, so here's one for you both. So you have to decide, John, whether it's trick, false, or tree, true.
Okay.
This one is called Barry Leadbeater. Barry Leadbeater played for Forest from 1897 to 1903 and was notorious around the city for his unusual addiction, rabbit clapping. He revealed the extent of his obsession and the toll it took on his family in his infamous autobiography, Claptrap. The niche sport of rabbit clapping involved guiding a blindfolded rabbit to the centre of a makeshift maze. Two rabbits, each being guided by a clapper, would enter the maze at the same time. The winner was the rabbit who made it to the middle first. Rabbit clapping had been commonplace since pagan times and was considered quite sophisticated. A predominantly working-class pursuit, rabbit clapping contests would often be passionate affairs contested for jackpots equivalent to £10 million in tomorrow's money. Queen Victoria tried to outlaw the sport, believing that if rabbits could be trained to navigate a maze while blindfolded, they could be programmed to perform all sorts of other tasks, including overthrowing the monarchy. Leadbeater knocked his hobby on the head after a heartbreaking accident changed his life forever. After begging his then gaffer, Ernest Toecap, to allow his favourite rabbit
Behave yourself. Ernest Toecap.
You don't need to go on, do you?
to allow his favourite rabbit.
No.
I'll try again. After begging his then gaffer, Ernest Toecap, to allow his favourite rabbit, Sergeant Mayhem, to sit pitch side for the big match against Grizzlewick Athletic,
Gristlewick.
all hell broke loose. Leadbeater scored a goal, described by the Grizzlewick Argus as a real fizz popper. The rapturous applause which greeted the
Said
goal.
the BFG.
The rapturous applause. I know I've put on weight, mate, but come on. The rapturous applause, which greeted the goal, scrambled the brainwaves of Sergeant Mayhem, who darted onto the pitch, believing the claps were orders to be followed. In a bizarre coincidence, the applause ringing round the city ground sounded identical to the one command all rabbit clappers know but never use: the order to kill. He made a rabbit line for the forest keeper Billy Blenkinsop, and sadly the rest is history. Blenkinsop died from a rabbit bite to the groin and was symbolically cremated on a bed of hay. Historians believe that because Blenkinsop was ginger, the rabbit believed it wasn't killing him, but merely biting into a massive carrot. Is that trick?
Am I allowed to take my medication before I answer this?
I feel like I have. Hang your head in shame, by the way.
Yeah,
Coming up with that after holding those medals.
Well, I wrote it on the train up. Well, it could be true. I don't want to.
Was it Grigglewick or Grigglewitch?
Grizzlewick.
Grizzlewitch. No, I'd have to say that there's no truth in
I
that.
think that's a trick.
I
think
think
it's
we're
a
going to
trick.
go for that, yeah.
Well, the suspense will hang over the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
Let's see if that is true or false.
I'm going to get the laptop out when I get home.
Yeah.
So that was Barry Leadbeater. He played for the famous Forest manager Ernest
I
Toecap.
do take the tours at the ground with some of the forest history, by the way.
Yeah, know your audience.
Sugar. Well, you could maybe add that in on the tour, John, and see. Well, who knows? It could be true. It's time now for Fan on the Phone, where we're going to be joined by a big Forest fan called Matt Appleby.
Hello, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Hi, Matt.
good morning, I should say.
Now, Matt, I'm told that you have a phenomenal archive, arguably the biggest Forest archive in the world. Is that right, of footage?
Well, somebody always has a bigger one, Matt, is a rule in life. I do have a large archive of Forest video, all lovingly originally recorded on my dad's Betamax video.
Oh, Betamax.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
indeed.
I've heard of those.
But that's obsolete now, isn't it?
It is, but Betamax at the time, as anybody will know who had a Betamax, my dad would regularly tell people that the quality of Betamax recorders was much superior to VHS at the time.
With the greatest respect to your dad, Matt, he has been proven to be on the wrong side of history, hasn't he? on that.
Absolutely right. However, the upside of this, though, Matt, is that those recordings of Forrest in the 80s, the quality of them is actually very good.
Right, to interject here, Matt's father's absolutely right. Betamax was superior quality, and in television and film, everything was filmed on Betamax because it was better quality. That's an actual fact. Because I used to use Betamax videos when I was working for ITV Wales.
That's come from the gods.
But if Johnny Owen says it,
Yep.
we know we don't argue in this game. We just have to take Johnny's word. Matt, are you able? Do you have a Betamax player you can play these things on then, or have you digitised them? Or something?
I digitised them all, and the actual Betamax does still live in my loft at home, and it is a massive thing. It is very heavy, but it's beautiful, very functional, but a beautiful specimen, which for some reason I just can't get rid of it. I want to keep it there. It's part of my life, so it's still sitting there in the loft. But the actual footage got digitised, so I went to the effort of putting it all on hard drives, which then I'm pleased to say we actually donated to the film I Believe in Miracles.
Wow!
So it's all gone to a good use in the end.
Oh, that is cool. We're joined by Forest's greatest ever captain, John McGovern today. Matt, what are your abiding memories of John as a player?
Well, my abiding memories of John is actually being at Alton Towers on the 14th of August 1980 because that was my birthday. I'd had a full Forest kit for that birthday and a Forest holdall. And when we got to the car park at Alton Towers, John McGovern's John Wheatley car was parked right next to us. So that's really my abiding memory of John is his green car in the car park at Alton Towers, and I have a lovely photo to prove it.
John, do you remember a boy in a full Forest kit loitering around your property?
I remember the car far more readily, actually.
What are your abiding memories of Paul as a player?
Well, Paul, I mean, I was working in Liverpool in the mid-90s, and I'd heard about this young, fast goal scorer coming through the reserves. And one Wednesday evening, the reserves were playing at Liverpool. So I thought, I'll tell you what, I'll go down and watch this young player and see what he's like. And we lost 2-0. And Paul had a modest game, to be fair. It would be
excellent story. Where was that? That wasn't at Anfield, was it? That was at Goodison.
It was. Yeah, it was at Anfield. Yeah.
No.
Yes, we lost 2-0. And then my other memory of Paul, of course, is that memorable overhead kick against Sheffield Wednesday. Memorable for a couple of reasons, really. I mean, number one, to be fair, it was a fantastic goal from Paul, overhead kick, but it was actually against Steve Nicol in goal for Sheffield Wednesday.
Are you suggesting that because Steve Nicol was in goal, that it diminished the technique?
No, not at all. It's just merely a point of detail.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that up.
It was fantastic.
Because if you were, I'd like to see you do it. Quite frankly,
Mac has turned it into question time. I'll take a question for the lady at the back with the funny glasses. Yeah.
Well, at least you remembered it. That's all. That's something.
I do indeed. It was a fantastic goal.
Oh, thank you,
Matt. Final question: can you do a Cloughie impression?
No, I can't.
Go on,
Not
have
with
a
my
go.
accent. It's just no. It's just impossible, young man.
It's just impossible, young man.
Start the bus.
Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Cheers, Matt.
Thank you, guys.
Matt Appleby there with the largest collection of Forest Betamax video. I mean, it's not saying much, I suppose, but I think he genuinely does have a phenomenal archive on digital and in analogue or whatever it's in. Now, we've got another giveaway. We've given away a half-season ticket. The club have given us a half-season ticket to give away. What a phenomenal gift to give away.
Brilliant, isn't it?
3 games for the rest of the season.
What more do you want?
Nothing. That's all I want out of life, to go and watch Forest.
Sponsored car.
Sponsored car. Exactly.
It depends.
John McGovern's going to throw in a lime green. What car was it?
That orange is the same colour as his desk.
Some sort of bright orange car. A European Cup medal? Maybe not.
No.
Quick no.
So, all you got to do is leave us a review on iTunes, but in the review, tell us the most arduous trip you've ever had to a Forest game. It could be a home game, it could be an away game, it could be an abroad game, it could be pre-season, it doesn't matter what it is. The most arduous trip to a Forest game. I need to figure out how to speak. The most arduous. Arduous?
You're getting there, yeah.
Arduous.
Yeah, that's
the
correct.
Hardest, longest.
Stick with arduous, you're right.
The most arduous trip to a Forest game that you've ever had in history ever. So leave it in an iTunes review, and Paul McGregor and our next guest will decide the winner. And the winner will get a half-season ticket at the City Ground for the rest of the season.
So no pressure, but I do take bribes.
Well, there you go. This is eminently bribable. What sort of bribes? We're talking cash?
Cash would work, but if you ever see me around beasting having a pint will do.
A pint will do.
Yeah.
Half a pint?
No. Not playing
Pint for
anymore.
Paul, half a Guinness for John, and that'll get you a half-season ticket. Email us in. You've got to get that Paul McGregor chant started now. Paul McGregor, your money or your life.
I prefer the
keep some
Macarena.
coming.
What about the Macarena?
The Macarena was good.
Yeah, Macarena.
I think there's more in people. Trust the public.
Okay, so people can make up their own.
Just bring them on.
As long as it's a chant about Paul McGregor. You've got to start it at Forest Game. Record it on your phone and email it into us, rrd1865.
Keep them clean, please.
We will keep them clean and then we can play them. But any tune, you can use the Adamant one or the Macarena one. Email them into rrd1865@outlook.com. That's all we've got time for. John McGovern, it has been an honour to spend time with you and to have you tell such phenomenal stories.
Many thanks.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
You Reds.